Hi everyone, welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earle and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity? Failure is such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But what a ride it will be. Today's guest is Dolly Hernandez, who represents high net worth individuals in complex marital and family law matters. She assists individuals in the dissolution of marriage, equitable distribution, alimony, child support, parenting and timeshare issues, paternity, prenuptial, and postnuptial agreements. In your professional career and in your opinion, what have you seen throughout years of working with the couples that the common mistake that couples make when they start the divorce process?
I would say some people jump the gun. I always ask, my first question at a consultation is, have you explored every avenue that you could take prior to filing for divorce? Are you sure you want to do this? Have you gone to therapy? Have you spoken to your spouse about the issues that you are having in your relationship? Because I think that you have to have honesty, you have to have open communication, and you have to have candor, and you have to be able to express yourself and say what you believe are the shortcomings of your relationship, because your partner may not even know that that's a shortcoming or an issue unless you voice it. And a lot of people bottle up so much emotion and so many issues, and then one day they explode and they say, I want to file for divorce. Well, have you explored all the different avenues that you could explore prior to filing for divorce? And it's interesting. Sometimes people they jump the gun and they say, I don't know why. I'm here for the consult. I've had enough. But you're right. I should go back and I should address maybe going to couples therapy.
Yeah. And do you find that often that people that they realize that they haven't even communicated really to one another as much as they should?
Unfortunately, yes. I think that a vast majority of what I see is a lack of communication. And unfortunately, if you don't communicate, you don't know what your partner is thinking. So a lot of times you hear, well, I am so aggravated by this situation. And then the follow-up question is, well, have you voiced that to your partner? And you hear this, there's a deafening silence. Oh, well, it's an issue, but you haven't addressed it with the other side. So how does the other side know it's an issue unless it's addressed?
I find that people today have harder and harder time with just simple ways of communicating with one another.
I see it often because everybody has such a busy schedule. So there's no time for communication, right? So people don't pencil in, oh, I'm going to communicate today with my spouse at 11 a.m. But we pencil in a lot of other different items. And I think that if there were maybe family meetings, and I've had consultations where the concept of family meetings have been thrown out. And I've always thought that is such a good concept. If you ran and it's typically the business person who tells you this, I have a family meeting every X date at this time. And I'm like, that is such a good idea. Because on that day, you sit down and you say, today we're going to tackle finances. Today we're going to tackle the family budget. Next week, we're going to tackle X. So if you ran your relationship, I know some people might think that this is truly unromantic, and it is. But if you want to have a successful marriage to some extent, if you applied some of these principles in theory, to your relationship, then maybe you can curb some of the issues.
Well, tell me a little bit about pros and cons on prenuptial agreement.
Just to backtrack a little bit, Natalia, I too used to think that way when I was in law school, before law school, even right after law school. I thought, if I am ever approached by someone who I am going to marry and he wants me to sign a prenuptial agreement, I don't know how I'm going to react to that, right? Is that a signal that you think I'm after something that you have, or that our marriage isn't going to last, or some other negative connotation? Because a lot of times we assign negative connotations to prenuptial agreements, but then in the actual practice, I've actually seen it as a tool where if you use it from a certain psychological perspective and you change your outlook and your perspective, you actually see a preview of your life. So one of the pros, I would say a significant pro, is number one, transparency. So right now you will see that person's finances, their assets and their liabilities. He will see, or she will see, your assets and your liabilities, your expenses, right then and there. Finances are a trigger point for most people. A spender and a saver get together, it's catastrophic. It is catastrophic unless someone adjusts the behavior. If you have two spenders, catastrophic. The only non-catastrophic relationship are two savers because they're both aligned and potentially there's no detrimental impact. So if you take it from that perspective and you say, well, at least I know what I'm getting myself into from the financial perspective and from the psychological perspective, if someone is telling you everything I had before I married you is mine, and everything I ever earned during the marriage is mine, and everything I ever earn is going to be mine, what does that tell you about that individual? There's no partnership. Whereas if you have someone that says, I'm doing this because I have inherited wealth and my parents really want me to sign off on this because they don't want, in the unforeseeable event that we get divorced, for anyone, a divorce lawyer, to put an idea in your head that you should attack this component of my wealth, then I'm protected. And so is my family, because my family, and I've seen this all too often, then get involved in a divorce. It's not their divorce, and no one wants to be involved in a divorce. That's not their divorce, not even their divorce. Some people don't want to be involved in their divorce. So you have this situation where the prenup protects against and mitigates against those type of situations, and that's a pro. And then, like I said, you have a preview into your life. 20 years from now, do you want to know for the first time that your spouse is going to fight you tooth and nail for each and every item that you approved, even during your marriage, by making some argument that somehow he or she should have an unequal distribution of marital assets and liabilities? I mean, I would want to know that ahead of time. I like to really analyze people and their negotiation style, because it tells me, are they going to be unwavering on some points? Are they manipulative? And that's a big key right there. Manipulative people. And you can tell them, you can tell who they are. They try to power play you. They try to hone in on certain aspects of your personality, like if you're an egocentric person. And it's also interesting to me because a lot of what I do, even though I don't have a psychology degree, is focused on psychology. So I take a look at all these different components, and you kind of know. You kind of know what you're going to get yourself into.
Yeah, definitely. So true. And do you find that women have harder time with negotiation?
They do. They do sometimes. It depends. It's all very person specific. Sometimes they do, because I'm a woman. I get it. It's not a romantic tool. If somebody presented me with a prenuptial agreement, I don't know how I would react, and I'm a lawyer, candidly speaking. And it's just so fact intensive, like what's going on in your life and all these other, you want to start planning your wedding and you want to be focused on romance, and you view this agreement as a non-romantic tool. So I think